So our final presentation for this morning is given to us by Nancy Brunswick, who is a regional landscape architect for the Intermountain Region of the U.S. Forest Service in Ogden. Prior to her current position, she was the recreation program manager on the Cibola National Forest in New Mexico, a byway specialist with the America's Byways Resource Center, and a landscape architect on the Dixie National Forest. She was a contributing author for Scenic Byways, a design guide for roadside improvements, which received an award from the National Association for Interpretation. Nancy received a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the University of Utah and a Master of Landscape Architecture from here at Utah State. Nancy?
Okay, thank you. Guess everybody can hear me? Okay, quick poll here, unscientific poll. How many of you have heard of the Pando Aspen clone? Pretty good. How many of those who have heard of it have found it? Much fewer. Okay. Of those that heard of it, how many of you have heard of it from social media? Wow, fairly small representation in this group. Well, we have an interesting phenomenon on the Fish Lake National Forest called Pando. It's a very large, from a genetic standpoint, a very large, very old aspen clone. If you happen to drive around the highway going around Fish Lake, it looks very much like every other aspen clone in the Fish Lake Basin. So we've had tourists driving around trying to find Pando. Oops. And for whatever reason, and I've been talking to Paul Rogers about this with the Western Aspen Alliance, Pando has really captured people's attention. Is it the largest living organism? There's a lot of places that assert that it is the largest living organism known right now. It has a name, Pando. We'll be talking about that a little bit more. It has its own U.S. postal stamp, and it's gone viral. It has internet and media attention all around the world. We have been, the public affairs officer on the Fish Lake National Forest has been hearing from outlets in Asia, Europe, I don't know about Africa, South America for sure. Some of the basic facts about Pando. It was named Pando for the Latin word for ice bread. The hypothesis is that it did come from a single tree at one point. It spans 106 acres, has nearly 43,000 identical stems, and weighs about 13 million pounds. Estimates range all over the place. They don't really know how old it is, but some of the estimates that you'll see on the internet, that it's 80,000 years old, and that it's the largest living single living organism from a genetic standpoint. Now, if you're trying to find Pando, the closest community is Richfield. Is this where? Yeah, Richfield, Utah, in southern Utah, off of I-70, and it's on the upslope from the Fish Lake. Pando has become a media star. It really has. There have been articles. It was interesting just getting ready for this talk. These are the publications that were provided by the public affairs officer where he's talked to people. National Geographic, New York Times, Discover and Outdoor magazines, and many others. But I even found an article in the Business Insider. Now, why the Business Insider cared about Pando, I don't know. But they have an article on Pando. PBS has filmed segments. There have been independent filmmakers from other places in the U.S., Canada, and Brazil that have requested permits to film Pando. And when I did a Google search yesterday, there's 181,000 results for Pando, for this clone in southern Utah. And one of the only ways people can find it is Google has provided us with a locator point for Pando. We'll be getting a little bit more about some of the other need for wayfinding for Pando in a little bit. Pando has become an inspiration for all kinds of things. There's a group that the Forest and Paul Rogers has been working with called Pando Populace, which is a group dedicated to environmental and social issues in Los Angeles County. It is made up of artists and ecologists and environmentalists, and they have adopted Pando as kind of their logo, their inspiration for their group. They have been doing retreats yearly and been offering to volunteer for doing things to help Pando, in addition to taking on their own causes in the Los Angeles County area. A really cool story. Local school children from Monroe Elementary in Richfield were wondering why the Colorado blue spruce was the state tree of Utah. So they, with their teacher, actually took on the state legislature to see if they could change the state tree of Utah to aspen. And they were successful. The photograph down in the corner is Governor Harry Herbert signing the bill into law to make aspen the state tree of Utah, all based on the inspiration of Pando. There's also a really great video if you look Monroe Elementary Pando online. There's a great 8-minute video from the point of view of the teacher talking about this initiative. If you look online, there's a family history game that uses Pando as an inspiration. And couples have been coming from all over the world, not a lot, but quite a few people have requested to be married in Pando. A little bit about the background on how Pando was discovered and named. In the 1970s, researchers were studying, Kemperman and Barnes were studying aspen clones in the area and were able to determine that this probably was genetically one very large clone based on the leaf shape, the color, and the age, that it was genetically identical stand. In 1993, another biologist, Michael Grant, estimated the weight and gave it the name Pando. Very fortuitous. And then in 2008, DeWoody and others did some systematic genetic work that validated the earlier assertions that yes, this was one living organism. Well, through all of this research, something else has been discovered that is more worrisome. Pando is in peril. Pando has experienced accelerated mortality of large trees without the recruitment of regeneration. It's been discovered that the regeneration through some treatments and fencing is the lack of regeneration is being caused by mule deer and cattle, herbery in the area. And this quote is from a paper that Paul Rogers has out on his Western Alliance table. So if you'd like to pick up that fact sheet on Pando, it says, the vast majority of Pando, where not protected by fencing, is collapsing under the weight of rapid die-off without successful regeneration. In the 80s, the Forest Service initiated experimental restoration to try to improve the regeneration. Probably due to the mule deer and cattle in the area, there was a poor regeneration response. We have this lovely interpretive scientist still out there, though. In 2013, there was another experimental restoration, which Paul and others have been working with and monitoring, where there were 3 different treatments tried: burning, juniper removal, and selective tree cutting to stimulate regeneration. And there's been a clear increase in regeneration within the fenced area. The photo on the right was one that I took in last fall. So there's substantial regeneration within the fenced area. These are photographs that are actually in an article that Paul is one of the co-authors on that is being released as we're doing this presentation, ironically. It's in the one PLOS journal, and it will be available online this afternoon. And it shows the aerial photographs that show the decline and some of the treatment areas that have happened between 1939 and 2011. This is a treatment area that has had a good response in regeneration. This is a treatment area that has not had a good response in regeneration. Okay, now we get to the social side of what's been going on. We have a problem. Where's Pando? Everybody else has a Where's Waldo. We have a Where's Pando. We have hundreds of inquiries that are looking for Pando. They've read about Pando. They want to find Pando. And like I said, if you drive through the Fish Lake Basin, it looks like an aspen clone, like every other aspen clone. There's a quote from a video that I will hopefully show you in a little bit from Mary O'Brien with the Grand Canyon Trust. She said that it's hiding in plain sight. A highway runs through it. It's easy to find. But the Forest Service We've been a little bit behind on the curve and the interest. So to date, there's no signs. There's a rudimentary brochure. And this sign is something that one of the local stores, a small country store that's in Fish Lake, has put on their counter to tell people about Pando. Okay, this has been an interesting journey. This comedian from Chicago and his girlfriend came to find Pando, Brad Einstein, and couldn't find Pando. Somebody finally directed him to where it was. He was concerned, so he contacted the Fish Lake National Forest and said, why are there no signs? Why is there no information? And of course, he was told that we have limited financial resources and haven't been able to afford to do anything. So he was motivated to help. He has started a crowdsource funding campaign and produced a viral video that he was hoping would go viral. I don't know if it's completely viral yet. It is making the rounds. And he was working with a production firm called There Be Dragons. And hopefully I can show you a little bit of it. It's actually about 9 minutes. If you're interested in seeing it, I'd encourage you to track it down.
Happy Arbor Day, Earth Day's forgotten older sibling. This Arbor Day, we'd like to introduce you to one of the gnarliest organisms on Earth. And we mean that literally. Take a gander at those gnarls.
Okay.
Maybe we can't.
We can hear it, but we can't see it.
That's all right.
Well, anyway, it is amusing. You can hear. We were worried about you not being able to see it and not hear it, and we've actually got the reverse problem.
Well, see if you could advance this.
Okay. That's weird. Well, if you do get into it, it's on Vimeo. You can, if you Google Panda Pledge, it will come up. And there's also another video down below it that just says the Fish Lake National Forest and the links on the side. That's some gorgeous work of their the drone footage that they took during that. Oh.
We have time. It's okay.
Okay.
Happy Arbor Day,
All right.
Earth Day's
Well,
forgotten
thank you.
older sibling. This Arbor Day, we'd like to introduce you to one of the gnarliest organisms on Earth. And we mean that literally. Take a gander at those gnarls. He's a single tree and an entire forest, the most massive living thing humanity has ever come across. A single organism and an entire ecosystem that has watched over the Fish Lake Basin for thousands of years, here in the middle of Utah. America's designated driver. He could also really use a couple of bucks thrown his way, but we'll get to that in a second, I promise.
This is Pando. Heck yeah, baby, we got a drone permit!
Pando is a forest of quaking aspen, or Populus tremuloides for all our ancient Roman viewership, and it's characterized by heart-shaped, saw-toothed leaves that turn a brilliant gold in the autumn, as well as stately white trunks that resemble emaciated ghosts with 1,000 eyes.
Now, it might be confusing that each individual tree and the entire forest are both called Pando, especially considering that Pando sounds like the name of some sort of 80s beefcake Rambo panda, you know?
Okay, that's a teaser. So if you want to watch the rest of it, you'll have to go Google it and find it yourself. It actually goes for almost 9 minutes, so. Okay. Yeah, nope, we're good. Okay, so we realize that we have an opportunity. We also have a problem. We have an aspen clone that many, many people are trying to find, but we have an opportunity to be able to channel that interest and tell not just the story of Pando, but the importance of aspen in the ecosystem, and hopefully to foster some stewardship and understanding among people for forests in the West and forests in the aspen habitat areas. Again, our financial resources are limited. We've been piecemealing this project. We're hoping at some point the GoFundMe site that Brad set up has generated about $3,600 right now. It's not a lot, but it's more than we had. And we've been able to put together some grants and some funding opportunities within the Forest Service. So we're beginning to tell, we're just at the beginning of the story. We'll have to all get back together again in maybe 5 years and see how we're doing. But we initiated an interpretive planning effort just last year where we were working with the local forest, when we were working with some of our partner organizations. Paul Rogers and Mary O'Brien have both been providing information and reviewing the interpretive plan to date. This year we have a contract, actually designed signs that will go on the highway where they'll tell you that you're entering and leaving Pando, so at least people will know if they found it. And we are in the process of beginning to design interpretive exhibits that, like I said, hopefully we'll be able to find funding to actually fabricate them, install them, but we can only have funding for the design work at this point. We have a number of management goals specific to providing interpretation and telling a better story. We want to respond to the interest by having professional interpretive program at the site. So when people discover it, they can find out more about it, they can find out more about aspen. We want to protect and preserve the clone in a way that is compatible with the natural life cycle and encourage respect and stewardship. We feel like that's very important. We want people to care. We want people to maybe take that to other areas and develop a sense of stewardship. It's sad as you're walking around through Pando. There's a campground on one side, there's a trail. People have carved in it their names going back probably since the 30s, if you look hard enough. So we're going to try to foster that sense of stewardship and caring. And provide visitors and residents with a sense of the significance of the clone. We have just an extreme audience range. We have local people, we have school groups that are coming up. We have people within the U.S. that are coming from a long ways away. They're on their big national park swing through southern Utah, and they want to find Pando while they're on the way. And we have people that are coming here specifically from international locations trying to find Pando. So we have a real range of audiences. We have a range of developing information and understanding that will speak to all of those audiences. And we just have a people management issue. How do we have people walk through? Where do they park? Right now there's a cattle guard and kind of a white spot in the road, and most people that are discovering where it is are just pulling off next to that cattle guard and the white spot in the road. So our ultimate hope is to have a parking area that is outside the clone, that's large enough to accommodate a school bus or two, and to give people a place to walk and see it. We've also had some discussions on where the best places for a trail. We need to have part of the trail through the older area of the clone so that they get the sense of the age and mature stems. However, we don't particularly want them letting deer into the fenced areas. So we have a people management issue on finding a good experience, but not exacerbating the problem. And then we want to ensure that increased visitation does not degrade Pando, because that defeats the purpose. The interpretive themes that we have developed are part of the larger story to share. So we don't want to just focus on Pando. We want to tell the story of the aspen and western ecosystems. Pando is ancient and enormous and demonstrates the power of propagation through cloning, that one tree can become 140-something acres. Pando has been continually studied, and that's one of the beauties of this story is we have information on this clone from the 1970s forward, which is really unusual, and it's a story that we can tell. The story that Pando is in trouble, and aspen throughout the West are in trouble for similar reasons, and so that being able to emphasize that the study that we have at Pando can benefit aspen in other locations. And just the importance of aspen and the to biodiversity and the role of that they play in the ecosystem and how important that is. Our planned exhibits, again, we're trying to manage people without degrading the clone. This is Dr. Crick Campground. I know I was just talking during the break to Mary O'Brien, and she has been very concerned about a campground being on the edge of the clone. It's difficult to get any regeneration, not just from mule deer going through the area, but people tromping through the area. And so our plan is there is an existing trailhead here, the Dr. Crick Trailhead. We have a sewer lagoon clearing down here. Our plan is to have an interpretive plaza down here that will become the primary area. We also have a great overlook here that is already in place but has no interpretation. So the plan is at some point to have an overlook that overlooks the whole area and it has a good view of the entire clone with introduction information here. A more detailed interpretive plaza here with a number of exhibits, and then a trail that follows an old road grade and comes down and follows one of the treatment areas down here so that we can interpret the treatment that's taking place and the relative success and challenges. And then it will go back up and we'll have a smaller interpretive area at this trailhead that also has some interpretation related to the old Spanish trail. So there'll be kind of a combination of there. But our hope is that by doing this, and then the really important piece is to have signs that let people know that they're driving through Pando for those people looking for it or those people that are interested and don't know that it's here. And these are a couple of the planned exhibits that we are potentially looking at. It's in a very conceptual phase right now. The firm that we're working with, Sea Reach Limited, they actually have people on their staff that can do some pretty amazing support structure so they can really get a sense of the aspen trees. And these are some, again, very conceptual, interpretive signs. This one would be designed to go on the overlook. This shows you the overlook looking back across the clone and where the clone is located. And most of all, our goal for this entire project is just so that people know that Pando is a special place. That's been the interesting thing about reading the articles, the connectivity of having basically a community of stems that are all connected and are all related really seems to appeal with people and resonate with people. Paul said that this article that's coming out right now, 1 minute ago, it's here. He's been getting, the press release went out about 2 weeks ago, and that he's been getting 2 or 3 calls a day for interviews ever since, talking about the monitoring work that he's been doing at Pando. So anyway, that is our story of Pando, which leaves us for some time for questions, if there are any. Like I said, I'm going to defer to Paul for any questions. I actually have to do the regeneration because that's not my area of expertise. I'll be happy to answer any questions related to the interpretation and the other work that we're doing related to Pando.
Question in the front?
Well, so you touched on the importance of protecting the clone from the visitors and how you'll have to balance increased visitorship with that goal. I'm wondering if you have any specific ideas for how that's going to play out, because some of the other famous trees, like the oldest Richfield pine, we don't even know where it is because they're trying to protect it. So, I mean, do you anticipate for there to be increased danger to come along with the visitorship, or?
That's part of the reason why we're trying to really work with the people management piece of it, so we can let people interact with it but still create a path for them to be on. It's a challenge, but we're having people there now, and there's no management at all. So, and it's an area that's a heavily used recreation area. So it's just a matter of balancing, being able to take advantage of the opportunity for the interest. I think there's a huge opportunity and advantage being able to share the story with people, but hopefully we won't do anything above the highway. The bulk of the clone is actually above the highway. We're not going to provide anything over there. All of it will be down below the highway, fairly channeled, fairly, maintained, hopefully. And hopefully by telling the story that we will encourage people to be good stewards. You always have that problem when you're inviting people to see something that they may not take the suggestion. And there's sort of a flip side too. If you have more people and more people are aware, there's going to be more people around to police themselves. So the more people, as long as it doesn't get to be too many people, the more people in the area, they're going to be more inclined to either say something to the person or say something to somebody from the Forest Service to come deal with problems, hopefully. So, yes?
I'm not super familiar with the area, but I do get the sense that there's not a lot of towns. It's pretty rural. Has there been any outreach to the gateway communities that are around it to maybe anticipate increased tourism or any way that they can teach it?
There is. In fact, we've been partnering with a lot of some of the groups in the community, some of the groups at Fish Lake. The Old Spanish Trail History Association, that is, their president is actually at Fish Lake Lodge. She and her family have been really active, both in helping with crowdsourcing and looking at some funding opportunities. And in the case of Old Spanish Trail Association, they could be a conduit to help us get work done if we receive funding from donations. Because sometimes for the Forest Service, it's difficult for us to manage money that comes in as donation, but the Old Spanish Trail Association can do that much more easily than we can, and then we are a partner with them, so we'd be able to get work done that way. So we are looking at that, but it is both Richfield, the local communities, Fish Lake areas, it's very rural, but they have been active partners. So
In the back?
Will this be the first tree or set of trees in the region that has its own parking lot?
Yes, it probably is, that I'm aware of. It'll probably be the first forested area. Well, we have a lot of forest with parking lots, but not one specifically for viewing that forest, yes. California has a bunch, though. They're ahead of us.